it's totally really raining. It's actually raining right now. I'm not gonna whisper the whole stream, okay? Hello everybody. Yes, the mic. You may sound a little different. I'm just trying something out. OMG. Hello everybody. Hello Yarko, Dearsimoto, Rosmer's Home, Yuno, Tarako, Mew Mew, and Sango, and Muggington. Hello. Oh, hope you're feeling better, by the way. OMG, yeah, I was a little worried today because my nose is a little congested, but, and I didn't want to blow my nose while reading, but I got some Vicks Vapor Rub. I have a lot of Vicks Vapor Rub on my upper, actually my lip kind of burns. I think I put too much. And I got some mint tea, so. Oh, hello, Expert Murder, OMG book. Yeah, I'm reading this book right now. I'm totally not reading from an internet browser, and I'm actually reading from this book right here in front of me. Believe me. But yeah, sorry, I lost my little notes. Okay, yeah. So, I hope everybody's having a good Sunday. So the format of this stream, I think, it's not gonna be super long, but I'll put the name of the story up here in case anyone wants to read along with me. And then after each story, I'll probably take a little break to drink water and maybe read chats, and you guys can comment on the story. It'll be just like a book club, maybe, if you read with me. And then we'll move to the next one. And also the disclaimer, obligatory disclaimer, there may be random loud noises, so if you are, make sure you don't listen at too high of a volume, because I'm gonna be talking quietly, but just in case, like, my neighbors drop their furniture or something. Okay, I think that's everything. And I also may mispronounce things. Yes, so the second disclaimer. Better, thank you. Hope your cozy reading will heal me. I hope it helps. Yeah, I have a bit of rain in the background, so maybe I find that the ambient noises help me feel better. Actually, I usually listen to ASMR. My head hurts. But oh, hello Humphrey as well. Minor pronunciation error, jump scare. Yes, you may be warning, you may be jump scared by my pronunciation mistakes. And I will do my best not to cough. No cough jump scares. Okay, since I'm gonna start reading soon, let me have some tea. Have some mint tea. Actually, I was practicing singing earlier today. I think I practiced too long. So I don't know how much reading I can go for, but we'll see. I do have, let me see, 1, 2, 3. I have 5 stories prepared today. Alright, so the first one, let me put this up on the stream. Yes, and if you're interested, you can read it too. We'll start with a short one. This is The Cats of Ulthar. Yeah. This is a Lovecraft story. And, well, I played a Lovecraft game yesterday, so we're just continue with the theme. That is the theme of Spooky Weekend, I guess. Okay, so, now I'm when do I start reading? Should I say, like, 3, 2, 1, go? Let me drink some more water. It's kind of hot, so I'm just blowing on it. You can consider this ASMR if you want. It's just me blowing on my hot water. Hippopotamus Lovecraft? Wait, what is that? What if there was like Dr. Seuss books but Lovecraft? That would be kind of cool. Okay, alright, I'm gonna start reading because the picture, or the name of the book is up on screen now. Okay, alright, so let's start. This is The Cats of Ulthar. Alright, why am I nervous? I don't know why. I think it's because normally I have some kind of music on in the background, but it's just me talking, so just a little bit nervous. Okay, let me drink a little bit more water. Oh, H.P. Howard Phillips Hippo. I see. Okay, so let's get started. It is said that in Ulthar, which lies beyond the river sky, no man may kill a cat, and this I can verily believe, as I gaze upon him who sitteth purring before the fire. For the cat is cryptic, and close to strange things with which men cannot see. He is the soul of ancient Egyptus, and bearer of tales from forgotten cities in Meroe and Ophir. He is the kin of the jungle's lords, and heir to the secrets of hoary and sinister Africa. The Sphinx is his cousin, and he speaks her language, but he is more ancient than the Sphinx, and remembers that which she hath forgotten. In Ulthar, before ever the burgesses forbade the killing of cats, there dwelt an old cotter and his wife, who delighted to trap and slay the cats of their neighbors. Why they did this, I know not, save that many hate the voice of the cat in the night, and take it ill that cats should run stealthily about yards and gardens at twilight. But whatever the reason, this old man and woman took pleasure in trapping and slaying every cat which came near to their hovel, and from some of the sounds heard after dark, many villagers fancied that the manner of slaying was exceedingly peculiar. But the villagers did not discuss such things with the old man and his wife, because of the habitual expression on the withered faces of the two, and because their cottage was so small and so darkly hidden under spreading oaks at the back of a neglected yard. In truth, much as the owners of the cats hated these odd folk, they feared them more, and instead of berating them as brutal assassins, merely took care that no cherished pet or mouser should stray towards the remote hovel under the dark trees. When through some unavoidable oversight a cat was missed, and sounds heard after dark, the loser would lament impotently, or console himself by thanking fate that it was not one of his children who had thus vanished. For the people of Ulthar were simple, and knew not whence it is all cats first came. I'm turning the page. One day, a caravan of strange wanderers from the south entered the narrow cobbled streets of Ulthar. Dark wanderers they were, and unlike the other roving folk who passed through the village twice every year. In the marketplace they told fortunes for silver, and bought gay beads from the merchants. What was the land of these wanderers none could tell, but it was seen that they were given to strange prayers, and that they had painted on the sides of their wagons strange figures with human bodies and the heads of cats, hawks, rams, and lions. And the leader of the caravan wore a headdress with 2 horns and a curious disc betwixt the horns. There was in this singular caravan a little boy with no father or mother, but only a tiny black kitten to cherish. The plague had not been kind to him, yet had left him this small furry thing to mitigate his sorrow, and when one is very young, one can find great relief in the lively antics of a black kitten. So the boy whom the dark people called Menes smiled more often than he wept as he sat playing with his graceful kitten on the steps of an oddly painted wagon. On the 3rd morning of the wanderer's stay in Ulthar, Menes could not find his kitten, and as he sobbed aloud in the marketplace, certain villagers told him of the old man and his wife, and of sounds heard in the night. And when he heard these things, his sobbing gave place to meditation, and finally to prayer. He stretched out his arms towards the sun, and prayed in a tongue no villager could understand, though indeed the villagers did not try very hard to understand, since their attention was mostly taken up by the sky and the odd shapes the clouds were assuming. It was very peculiar, but as the little boy uttered his petition, there seemed to form overhead the shadowy, nebulous figures of exotic things, of hybrid creatures crowned with horn-flanked discs. Nature is full of such illusions to impress the imaginative. That night the wanderers left Ulthar, and were never seen again, and the householders were troubled when they noticed that in all the village there was not a cat to be found. From each hearth the familiar cat had vanished. Cats large and small, black, gray, striped, yellow, and white. Old Cranon, the burgomaster, swore that the dark folk had taken the cats away in revenge for the killing of Menes' kitten, and cursed the caravan and the little boy. But Nith, the lean notary, declared that the old cotter and his wife were more likely persons to suspect, for their hatred of cats was notorious and increasingly bold. Still, no one durst complain to the sinister couple, even when little Atal, the innkeeper's son, vowed that he had at twilight seen all the cats of Ulthar in that accursed yard under the trees, pacing very slowly and solemnly in a circle around the cottage, 2 abreast, as if in performance of some unheard-of rite of beasts. The villagers did not know how much to believe from so small a boy, and though they feared that the evil pair had charmed the cats to their death, they preferred not to chide the old cotter till they met him outside his dark and repellent yard. So Ulthar went to sleep in vain anger, And when the people awakened at dawn, behold! Every cat was back at his accustomed hearth, large and small, black, gray, striped, yellow and white. None was missing. Very sleek and fat did the cats appear, and sonorous with purring content. The citizens talked with one another of the affair, and marveled not a little. Old Crane again insisted that it was the dark folk who had taken them, since cats did not return alive from the cottage of the ancient man and his wife. But all agreed on one thing, that the refusal of all the cats to eat their portions of meat, or drink their saucers of milk, was exceedingly curious. And for 2 whole days, the sleek, lazy cats of Ulthar would touch no food, but only doze by the fire or in the sun. It was fully a week before the villagers noticed that no lights were appearing at dusk in the windows of the cottage under the trees. Then the lean Nith remarked that no one had seen the old man or his wife since the night the cats were away. In another week, the burgomaster decided to overcome his fears and call at the strangely silent dwelling as a matter of duty, though in so doing, he was careful to take with him Shang the blacksmith and Thul the cutter of stone as witnesses. And when they had broken down the frail door, they found only this: 2 cleanly picked human skeletons on the earthen floor, and a number of singular beetles crawling in the shadowy corners. There was subsequently much talk among the burgesses of Ulthar. Zath, the coroner, disputed at length with Nith, the lean notary, and Cranon and Shang and Thul were overwhelmed with questions. Even little Atal, the innkeeper's son, was closely questioned and given a sweetmeat as reward. They talked of the old cotter and his wife, of the caravan of dark wanderers, of small Menace and his black kitten, of the prayer of Menace and of the sky during that prayer, of the doings of the cats on the night the caravan left, and of what was later found in the cottage under the dark trees in the repellent yard. And in the end, the burgesses passed that remarkable law which is told of by traders in Hathag and discussed by travelers in Nir, namely, that in Ulthar no man may kill a cat. The end. Yeah, and that was The Cats of Ulthar. Yes, I guess this is one of the earlier stories of Lovecraft. Okay, yay, now I can drink some water. Sorry if I'm talking too loud now. Oh, I can drink some tea. Pachi, thank you. Also, hello, Sam Pasta. Hello. Yes, it's a good thing I made this, the Yumane Nya emote. It's a good story if you use this. Yes, very, very good story. Cute and totally not pro-cat propaganda. Insert hydrate redeem here. Sorry, yeah, there's no hydrates. Did I learn anything from the story? Cats are actually... Maybe cats... Oh shoot, I didn't mean to change my hair. I was trying to scroll down. Cats have superpowers? Cats can communicate with... Yes, okay. Cats can communicate with the elder ones. The old ones. So yes, you never... Wait, your cats. You may think they just want food, but actually they're communing with the eldritch beings. Yeah, I didn't put a hydrate because I may not be able to honor it during the story if I'm reading. Also, I didn't realize it's like kind of hard to talk in like a quiet voice. I'm using my library voice. You guys also talk quietly at the library, right? Yeah, make sure to talk very quietly. Yeah, I don't know what I would rate this story, but I'm not gonna rate the stories. It's a fun short read. Okay, so I'll start putting up the next story. Yes, hope you guys enjoyed this story about cats. This one, I actually picked this one out after the yesterday's stream because I thought it would be fun to read this after playing the Dark Corners game. Yes, this one is Dagon. I don't actually know if there's like a canonical pronunciation of Dagon. Hang on, I need to mute for a sec. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Dagon or Dagon. I'm gonna say Dagon. But yeah, this is the guy who showed up in the game yesterday. Dagon it. Yeah, you know, if you're a worshipper of Dagon, you may say Dagon it. But yeah, this is the esoteric order of Dagon shows up in the game that we played yesterday, and so you may find some aspects of this story a little familiar if you were watching that stream. Dagon fell. Oh my god. No, not that one. Not Dagoth or not Dagon fell. That's the Dagon the fish god. Why not? I just need a little more water. Okay, so let's start reading the story about Dagon. I'm writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more, penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable. I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from this garret window into the squalid street below. Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death. It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo fell a victim to the German sea raider. The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation, so that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of our crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration due us as naval prisoners. So liberal indeed was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat, with water and provisions, for a good length of time. When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings. Never a competent navigator, I can only guess vaguely by the sun and stars that I was somewhat south of the equator. Of the longitude I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight. The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land. But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude among the heaving vastnesses of unbroken blue. The change happened whilst I slept. Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous. When at last I awaked, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire, which extended about me in monotonous undulations as far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance away. Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of scenery, I was in reality more horrified than astonished. For there was in the air and in the rotting soil a sinister quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish, and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain. Perhaps I should not hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity. There was nothing within hearing, and nothing in sight, save a vast reach of black slime. Yet the very completeness of the stillness and the homogeneity of the landscape oppressed me with a nauseating fear. Turning pages. The sun was blazing down from a sky which seemed to me almost black in its cloudless cruelty, as though reflecting the inky marsh beneath my feet. As I crawled into the stranded boat, I realized that only one theory could explain my position, though through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions which for innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable watery depths. So great was the extent of the new land which had risen beneath me that I could not detect the faintest noise of the surging ocean, strain my ears as I might, nor were there any seafowl to prey upon the dead things. For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and affronted a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens. As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness, and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to an overland journey in search of the vanished sea and possible rescue. On the third morning I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind so slight an evil, and set out boldly for an unknown goal. All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert. That night I encamped, and on the following day still traveled towards the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it. By the fourth evening I attained the base of the mount, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance, an intervening valley setting it out in sharper relief from the general surface. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow of the hill. I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again, and in the glow of the moon I saw how unwise I had been to travel by day. Without the glare of the parching sun, my journey would have cost me less energy. Indeed, I now felt quite able to perform the ascent which had deterred me at sunset. Picking up my pack, I started for the crest of the eminence. I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me, but I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite as so perpendicular as I had imagined. Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of a few hundred feet, the declivity became very gradual. I don't think I've ever heard the word declivity before. Urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks, and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. Turning the page. All at once my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply about 100 yards ahead of me, an object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon. That it was merely a gigantic piece of stone, I soon assured myself, but I was conscious of a distinct impression that its contour and position were not altogether the work of nature. A closer scrutiny filled me with sensations I cannot express, for despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom of the sea since the world was young, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures. Oh, one sec, I gotta mute. Dazed and frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientist's or archaeologist's delight, I examined my surroundings more closely. The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, widening out of sight in both directions and almost lapping my feet as I stood on the slope. Across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now trace both inscriptions and crude sculptures. The writing was in a system of hieroglyphics unknown to me, and unlike anything I had ever seen in books, consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things, which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain. It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound. Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs, whose subjects would have excited the envy of a Doré. I think that these things were supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men, though the creatures were shewn disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine, which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and forms I dare not speak in detail, for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Of their grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer, they were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet, shockingly wide and flabby lips, glassy bulging eyes, and other features less pleasant to recall. Curiously enough, they seemed to have been chiseled badly out of proportion with their scenic background, for one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale represented as little larger than himself. I remarked, as I say, their grotesqueness and strange size, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe, some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal man was born. Oh, one sec. I accidentally clicked something on OBS. Okay, one sec. Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the most daring anthropologist, I stood musing while the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it, with only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface. The thing slid into view above the dark waters. Vast, polyphemus-like, and loathsome, it darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the monolith about which it flung its gigantic, scaly arms. The while it bowed its hideous head and gave vent to certain measured sounds. I think I went mad then. Of my frantic ascent of the slope and cliff, and of my delirious journey back to the stranded boat, I remember little. I believe I sang a great deal, and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. I have indistinct recollections of a great storm some time after I reached the boat. At any rate, I know that I heard peals of thunder, and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest moods. When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital, brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing, nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe. Once, I sought out a celebrated ethnologist, and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend of Dagon, the fish god, but soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional, I did not press my inquiries. It is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing. I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease, and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement of my fellow men. Often I ask myself if it could not have all been a pure phantasm, a mere freak of fever, as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man-of-war. This I ask myself, but ever does there come before me a hideously vivid vision in reply. I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may, at this very moment, be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likenesses on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down in their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind, of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean floor shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium. The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it. It shall not find me. God, that hand! The window! The window! The end! And that's the end of Dagon. Oh, that one was a bit longer. Yes, welcome in, spooky enjoyers. Hello, LTC. Hello, Fig Castle. Yeah, that one was a bit... And that was a bit more than slightly spooky. Actually, it was a bit depressing, but that's okay. Yeah, real Eldritch Horror Fish God appears in this story. This is actually like an earlier one. I think this is before he wrote the official Cthulhu Mythos ones. But it's kind of cool and creepy. He gets stranded at sea. I think the setting is really cool. Like being stranded at sea and then climbing up at sea and finding this weird statue and then there's a weird... seeing Dagon for real. So yes, top spook. I rate this a spooky out of 10. Also, yes, morphine. Just like yesterday's story, yeah, back in these times, yes, morphine was the injectable often used by people. There's some manga adaptation and the story is a good one. Yeah, I can definitely imagine like the paneling, like how they could do the paneling with the creature grabbing the obelisk. That would be really cool. Yeah, this is a good spooky or in terms of the like visuals, this one would definitely have some good spooky visuals. Maybe I'll look into it, the Lovecraft mangas. But thank you guys for listening. Yes, that is the end of this story. Okay, I'm gonna drink some water for a little bit and then we'll start the next one. Yes, I also have a confession, which is all of the stories are Lovecraft stories, because I just played that game yesterday and I was like, I want to write some Lovecraft stories. So sorry if you're hoping for non-Lovecraft spooky stories. Maybe I could still do that. There's like Poe, and I only really know Poe actually. I feel like a lot of people have read Poe stories already. I don't know if you guys have suggestions for spooky stories. Please feel free to let me know as well. Okay, so the next one, and I think I may do this one in a non-whispery voice, because the whispery tires my voice out. So, and also this, I think this one is, it would be kind of weird to whisper it, because this is from a kind of second person of somebody talking to you. Yes, let me put the title up. So if you would like to look this one up, this one is Pickman's Model. And this one is pretty spooky too, so yes, if you like spooky, this one gets very spooky at the end, so. Okay, actually, I need a little bit more water. Okay, this is Pickman's Model. Alright, let's get started. You needn't think I'm crazy, Elliot. Plenty of others have queerer prejudices than this. Why don't you laugh at Oliver's grandfather, who won't ride in a motor? If I don't like that damned subway, it's my own business, and we got here more quickly anyhow in the taxi. We'd have had to walk up the hill from Park Street if we'd taken the car. Pickman, not Pickman. Not Pickman, Pickman. Oh, hello, Crab26. Okay, sorry, I'll stop reading chat because we're gonna start the story. Pickman. Yes, maybe if you guys can imagine Pickman as the eldritch horrors in the story, that will may make it more entertaining. Okay, I will continue. I know I'm more nervous than I was when you saw me last year, but you don't need to hold a clinic over it. There's plenty of reason, God knows, and I fancy I'm lucky to be sane at all. Why, the third degree? You didn't used to be so inquisitive. Well, if you must hear it, I don't know why you shouldn't. Maybe you ought to, anyhow, for you kept writing me like a grieved parent when you'd heard I'd begun to cut out the art club and keep away from Pickman. Okay, I keep saying it just like Pickman. Pickman? Pickman. Now that he's disappeared, I go around to the club once in a while, but my nerves aren't what they were. No, I don't know what's become of Pickman, and I don't like to guess. He might have surmised I had some inside information when I dropped him, and that's why I don't want to think where he's gone. Let the police find what they can. It won't be too much, judging from the fact that they don't know yet of the old North End place he hired under the name of Peters. I'm not sure that I could find it again myself. Not that I'd ever try, even in broad daylight. Yes, I do know, or I'm afraid I know, why he maintained it. I'm coming to that, and I think you'll understand before I'm through why I don't tell the police. They would ask me to guide them, but I couldn't go back there even if I knew the way. There was something there. And now I can't use the subway or... And you may as well have your laugh at this too. Go down into cellars anymore. I should think you'd have known I didn't drop Pickman for the same silly reasons that fussy old women like Dr. Reid or Joe Mino and Bosworth did. Morbid art doesn't shock me, and when a man has the genius Pickman had, I feel it an honor to know him, no matter what direction his work takes. Boston never had a greater painter than Richard Upton Pickman. I said it at first, and I say it still, and I never swerved an inch either. When he shooed that ghoul feeding, that, you remember, was when Minu cut him. You know, it takes profound art and profound insight into nature to turn out stuff like Pickman's. Any magazine cover hack can splash paint around wildly and call it a nightmare or a witch's sabbath or a portrait of the devil, but only a great painter can make such a thing really scare or ring true. That's because only a real artist knows the actual anatomy of the terrible, or the physiology of fear, the exact sorts of lines and proportions that connect up with latent instincts or hereditary memories of fright, and the proper color contrasts and lighting effects to stir the dormant sense of strangeness. I don't have to tell you why a Fuseli really brings a shiver, while a cheap ghost story frontispiece merely makes us laugh. There's something those fellows catch, beyond life, that they're able to make us catch for a second. Doré had it, Syme has it, Angarola of Chicago has it, and Pickman has it, as no man ever had it before, or, I hope to heaven, ever will again. Don't ask me what it is they see. You know, in ordinary art, there's all the difference in the world between the vital, breathing things drawn from nature or models, and the artificial truck that commercial small fry reel off in a bare studio by rule. Well, I should say that the really weird artist has a kind of vision which makes models, or summons up what amounts to actual scenes from the spectral world he lives in. Anyhow, he manages to turn out results that differ from the pretender's mince-pie dreams, in just about the same way that the life painter's results differ from the concoctions of a correspondence school cartoonist. If I had ever seen what Pickman saw, but no! Here, let's have a drink before we get any deeper. Gad, I wouldn't be alive if I'd ever seen what that man, if he was a man, saw. You recall that Pickman's forte was faces. Oh, I skipped, oops. I don't believe anybody since Goya could put so much of sheer hell into a set of features, or a twist of expression. And before Goya, you have to go back to the medieval chaps who did the gargoyles and chimeras on Notre Dame and Mont Saint-Michel. They believed all sorts of things, and maybe they saw all sorts of things, too, for the Middle Ages had some curious faces. I remember you were asking Pickman yourself once, the year before you went away, wherever in thunder he got such ideas and visions. Wasn't that a nasty laugh he gave you? It was partly because of that laugh that Reid dropped him. Reid, you know, had just taken up comparative pathology. What the heck is that? And was full of inside stuff about the biological or evolutionary significance of this or that mental or physical symptom. He said Pickman repelled him more and more every day, and almost frightened him towards the last, that the fellow's features and expression were slowly developing in a way he didn't like, in a way that wasn't human. He had a lot of talk about you, and he had any correspondence over it, that he'd let Pickman's paintings get on his nerves or harrow up his imagination. I know I told him that myself, man. But keep in mind that I didn't drop Pickman for anything like this. On the contrary, my admiration for him kept growing, for that ghoul feeding was a tremendous achievement. As you know, the club wouldn't exhibit it, and the Museum of Fine Arts wouldn't accept it as a gift, and I can add that nobody would buy it, so Pickman had it right in his house till he went. Now his father has it in Salem. You know, Pickman comes of old Salem stock, and had a witch ancestor hanged in 1692. Oh yeah, Salem, that's a spooky story. I got into the habit of calling on Pickman quite often, especially after I began making notes for a monograph on weird art. Probably it was his work which put the idea into my head. And anyhow, I found him a mine of data and suggestions. When I came to develop it, he showed me all the paintings and drawings he had about, including some pen and ink sketches. That would, I verily believe, have got him kicked out the club, if many of the members had seen them. Before long, I was pretty nearly a devotee, and would listen for hours like a schoolboy to art theories and philosophic speculations wild enough to qualify him for the Danvers Asylum. My hero worship, coupled with the fact that people generally were commencing to have less and less to do with him, made him get very confidential with me, and one evening he hinted that if I were fairly close-mouthed and none too squeamish, he might show me something rather unusual, something a bit stronger than anything he had in the house. "You know," he said, "there are things that won't do for Newbury Street, things that are out of place here, and can't be conceived here anyhow. It's my business to catch the overtones of the soul, and you won't find those in a parvenu set of artificial streets on mainland. Back Bay isn't Boston. It isn't anything yet, because it's had no time to pick up memories and attract local spirits. If there are any ghosts here, they're the tame ghosts of a salt marsh and a shallow cove, and I want human ghosts, the ghosts of beings highly organized enough to have looked on hell and known the meaning of what they saw. The place for an artist to live is the North End. If any aesthete were sincere, he'd put up with the slums for the sake of the mass traditions. God, man, don't you realize that places like that weren't merely made, but actually grew? Generation after generation lived and felt and died there, and in days when people weren't afraid to live and feel and die. Don't you know there was a mill on Copp's Hill in 1632, and that half the present streets were laid out by 1650? I can show you houses that have stood 2 centuries and a half or more. Houses that have witnessed what would make a modern house crumble into powder. What do moderns know of life and the moderns? Sorry. Just insulting people by calling them moderns. It's like normies, but what do moderns know of life and the forces behind it? You call the Salem witchcraft a delusion, but I'll wage my 4 times great-grandmother could have told you things. They hanged her on Gallows Hill, with Cotton Mather looking sanctimoniously on. Mather, damn him, was afraid somebody might succeed in kicking free of this accursed cage of monotony. I wish someone had laid a spell on him, or sucked his blood in the night. I can show you a house he lived in, and I can show you another one that he was afraid to enter in spite of all his fine, bold talk. He knew things he didn't dare put into that stupid Magnalia, or that puerile Wonders of the Invisible World. Look here, do you know the whole North End once had a set of tunnels that kept certain people in touch with each other's houses, and the burying ground, and the sea? Let them prosecute and persecute above ground. Things went on every day that they couldn't reach, and voices left at night that they couldn't place. Why, man, out of 10 surviving houses built before 1700 and not moved, I'll wager that in 8 I can show you something queer in the cellar. There's hardly a month that you don't read of workmen finding bricked-up arches and wells leading nowhere in this or that old place, as it comes down. You could see one near Henchman Street from the elevated last year. There were witches and what their spells summoned, pirates and what they brought in from the sea, smugglers, privateers, and I tell you, people knew how to live and how to enlarge the bounds of life in the old times. This wasn't the only world a bold and wise man could know. Fog. He said fog. It actually says that. And to think of today in contrast, with such pale pink brains that even a club of supposed artists gets shudders and convulsions if a picture goes beyond the feelings of a Beacon Street tea table. Yes, I'm going to start calling people pale pink-brained and moderns. Sorry, I will read chat afterwards. I keep getting distracted. Okay. The only saving grace of the present is that it's too damned stupid to question the past very closely. What do maps and records and guidebooks really tell of the North End? Bah. And I guess I'll guarantee to lead you to 30 or 40 alleys, and networks of alleys north of Prince Street that aren't suspected by 10 living beings outside of the foreigners that swarm them. And what do these Dagos know of their meeting? No, Thurber. These ancient places... I hope that's not a bad word. Lovecraft. Please. This Dagos is not a bad word, right? Oh, God. It is a bad word. I'm sorry. I take it back. Ah, stupid Lovecraft. Why are you like this? I should have known. Oh. Okay, but please imagine I didn't say that. No, Thurber, these ancient places are dreaming gorgeously and overflowing with wonder and terror and escapes from the commonplace. and yet there's not a living soul to understand or profit by them. Or rather, there's only one living soul, for I haven't been digging around in the past for nothing. See here, you're interested in this sort of thing. What if I told you that I've got another studio up there, where I can catch the night spirit of antique horror and paint things that I couldn't even think of in Newbury Street? Naturally, I don't tell those cursed old maids at the club, with Raid, damn him, whispering even as it is that I'm a sort of monster bound down the toboggan of reverse evolution. Yes, Thurber, I decided long ago that one must paint terror as well as beauty from life, so I did some exploring in places where I had reason to know terror lives. Okay, I really need some water. This one is longer than I expected. Hang on, I'm gonna mute for a sec to cough. I've got a place that I don't believe 3 living Nordic men besides myself have ever seen. It isn't so very far from the elevated as distance goes, but it's centuries away as the soul goes. I took it because of the queer old brick well in the cellar, one of the sort I told you about. The shack's almost tumbling down, so that nobody else will live there, and I'd hate to tell you how little I pay for it. The windows are boarded up, but I like that all the better since I don't want daylight for what I do. I paint in the cellar, where the inspiration is thickest, but I have other rooms furnished on the ground floor. A Sicilian owns it, and I've hired it under the name of Peters. Now, if you're game, I'll take you there tonight. I think you'd enjoy the pictures, for as I've said, I've let myself go a bit there. It's no vast tour, I sometimes do it on foot, for I don't want to attract attention with a taxi in such a place. We can take the shuttle at the South Station for Battery Street, and after that the walk isn't much. Well, Elliot, there wasn't much for me to do after that harangue. It was a pretty long harangue. But to keep myself from running instead of walking for the first vacant cab we could sight, we changed to the elevated at the South Station, and at about 12 o'clock had climbed down the steps at Battery Street and struck along the old waterfront past Constitution Wharf. I didn't keep track of the cross streets, and can't tell you yet which it was we turned up, but I know it wasn't Greenough Lane. When we did turn, it was to climb through the deserted length of the oldest and dirtiest alley I ever saw in my life, with crumbling-looking gables, broken small-paned windows, and archaic chimneys that stood out half disintegrated against the moonlit sky. I don't believe there were 3 houses in sight that hadn't been standing in Cotton Mather's time. Certainly I glimpsed at least 2 with an overhang, and once I thought I saw a peaked roofline of the almost forgotten pre-Gambrel type, though antiquarians tell us there are none left in Boston. From that alley, which had a dim light, we turned to the left into an equally silent and still narrower alley with no light at all, and in a minute made what I think was an obtuse, angled bend towards the right in the dark. Not long after this, Pickman produced a flashlight and revealed an antediluvian. This is Lovecraft's favorite word, antediluvian. Antediluvian 10-paneled door that looked damnably worm-eaten. Unlocking it, he ushered me into a barren hallway with what was once splendid dark oak paneling. Simple, of course, but thrillingly suggestive of the times of Andros and Phipps and the witchcraft. Then he took me through a door on the left, lighted an oil lamp, and told me to make myself at home. Now, Elliot, I'm what the man in the street would call fairly hard-boiled. I love the word hard-boiled. But I'll confess that what I saw on the walls of that room gave me a bad turn. They were his pictures, you know, the ones he couldn't paint or even show on Newbury Street, and he was right when he said he had let himself go. Here, have another drink. I need one anyhow. There's no use in me trying to tell you what they were like, because the awful, the blasphemous horror, and the unbelievable loathsomeness and moral how do you pronounce this word? I don't know this. I genuinely have no idea what this word is. I'm sorry, one second. Strong, foul smell. Okay. Is it? Unbelievable loathsomeness, and moral fetor came from simple touches, quite beyond the power of words to classify. There was none of the exotic technique you see in Sydney Syme, none of the trans-Saturnian landscapes and lunar fungi that Clark Ashton Smith uses to freeze the blood. The backgrounds were mostly old churchyards, deep woods, cliffs by the sea, brick tunnels, ancient paneled rooms, or simple vaults of masonry. Copp's Hill burying ground, which could not be many blocks away from this very house, was a favorite scene. Okay, turning the page. The madness and monstrosity lay in the figures in the foreground, for Pickman's morbid art was preeminently one of demonic portraiture. These figures were seldom completely human, but often approached humanity in varying degree. Most of the bodies, while roughly bipedal, had a forward slumping and a vaguely canine cast. The texture of the majority was a kind of unpleasant rubberiness. Ugh, I could see them now. Their occupations, well, don't ask me to be too precise. They were usually feeding, I won't say on what. They were sometimes shown in groups in cemeteries or underground passages, and often appeared to be in battle over their prey, or rather their treasure trove, and what damnable expressiveness Pickman sometimes gave the sightless faces of this charnel booty. Occasionally the things were shown leaping through open windows at night, or squatting on the chests of sleepers worrying at their throats. One canvas showed a ring of them, baying about a hanged witch on Gallows Hill, whose dead face held a close kinship to theirs. But don't get the idea that it was all this hideous business of theme and setting which struck me faint. I'm not a 3-year-old kid, and I'd seen much like this before. It was the faces, Elliot. Those accursed faces that leered and slavered out of the canvas with the very breath of life. By God, man, I verily believe they were alive. That nauseous wizard had waked the fires of hell in pigment, and his brush had been a nightmare-spawning wand. Give me that decanter, Elliot. Yeah, Elliot, I need a drink. Name my bourbon. That's not in the story. That was me. That was me improvising. There was one thing called the lesson. Heaven pity me that I ever saw it. Listen. Can you fancy a squatting circle of nameless dog-like things in a churchyard, teaching a small child how to feed like themselves? The price of a changeling, I suppose. You know the old myth about how the weird people leave their spawn in cradles in exchange for the human babes they steal? Pickman was showing what happens to the stolen babes, how they grow up. And then I began to see a hideous relationship between the frankly non-human and the degradedly human, establishing a sardonic linkage in evolution. The dog things were developed from mortals, and no sooner had I wondered what he made of their own young as left with mankind in the form of changelings, than my eye caught a picture embodying that very thought. It was that of an ancient Puritan interior, a heavily beamed room with lattice windows, a settle, and clumsy 17th century furniture, with the family sitting about, while the father read from the scriptures. Every face but one showed nobility and reverence, but that one reflected the mockery of the pit. It was that of a young man in years, and no doubt belonged to a supposed son of that pious father, but in essence it was the kin of the unclean things. It was their changeling, and in a spirit of supreme irony, Pickman had given the features a very perceptible resemblance to his own. By this time Pickman had lighted a lamp in an adjoining room, and was politely holding the door open for me, asking me if I would care to see his modern studies. I hadn't been able to give him much of my opinions. I was too speechless with fright and loathing, but I think he fully understood, and felt highly complimented. And now I want to assure you again, Elliot, that I'm no mollycoddle. To scream at anything which shows a bit of departure from the usual. I'm middle-aged and decently sophisticated, and I guess you saw enough of me in France to know I'm not easily knocked out. Remember, too, that I just about recovered my wind, and gotten used to those frightful pictures, which turned colonial New England into a kind of annex of hell. Well, in spite of all this, that next room forced a real scream out of me, and I had to clutch at the doorway to keep from keeling over. The other chamber had shown a pack of ghouls and witches overrunning the world of our forefathers, but this one brought the horror right into our own daily life. Oh, it's so spooky. Gad, how that man could paint! There was a study called Subway Accident, in which a flock of the vile things were clambering up from some unknown catacomb through a crack in the floor of the Boylston Street subway and attacking the crowd of people on the platform. Another showed a dance on Copp's Hill among the tombs, with the background of today. Then there were any number of cellar views, with monsters creeping in through holes and rifts in the masonry, and grinning as they squatted behind barrels or furnaces and waited for their first victim to descend the stairs. One disgusting canvas seemed to depict a vast cross-section of Beacon Hill, with ant-like armies of the mephitic monsters squeezing themselves through burrows that honeycombed the ground. Dances in the modern cemeteries were freely pictured, and another conception somehow shocked me more than all the rest, a scene in an unknown vault, where scores of the beasts crowded about one who held a well-known Boston guidebook, and was evidently reading aloud. All were pointing to a certain passage, and every face seemed so distorted with epileptic and reverberant laughter that I almost thought I heard the fiendish echoes. The title of the picture was Holmes, Lowell, and Longfellow Lie Buried in Mount Auburn. As I gradually steadied myself and got readjusted to the second room of deviltry and morbidity, I began to analyze some of the points in my sickening loathing. In the first place, I said to myself, these things repelled because of the utter inhumanity and callous cruelty they showed in Pickman. This fellow must be a relentless enemy of all of mankind, to take glee in the torture of brain and flesh and the degradation of the mortal tenement. In the second place, they're terrified because of their very greatness. Their art was the art that convinced. When we saw the pictures, we saw the demons themselves, and were afraid of them, and the queer part was that Pickman got none of his power from the use of selectiveness or bizarrerie. Nothing was blurred, distorted, or conventionalized. Outlines were sharp and lifelike, and details were almost painfully defined. And the faces! It was not any mere artist's interpretation that we saw. It was pandemonium itself, crystal clear, in stark objectivity. That was it, by heaven! That man was not a fantasiste or romanticist at all. He did not even try to give us the churning prismatic ephemera of dreams, but coldly and sardonically reflected some stable, mechanistic, and well-established horror world, which he saw fully, brilliantly, squarely, and unfalteringly. God knows what that world could have been, or where he ever glimpsed the blasphemous shapes that loped and trotted and crawled through it, but whatever the baffling source of his images, one thing was plain. Pickman was in every sense, in conception and in execution, a thorough, painstaking, and almost scientific realist. My host was now leading the way down cellar to his actual studio, and I braced myself for some hellish effects among the unfinished canvases. As we reached the bottom of the damp stairs, he turned his flashlight to a corner of the large open space at hand, revealing the circular brick curb of what was evidently a great well in the earthen floor. We walked nearer, and I saw that it must be 5 feet across, with walls a good foot thick, and some 6 inches above the ground level, solid work of the 17th century, or I was much mistaken. That, Pickman said, was the kind of thing he had been talking about, an aperture of the network of tunnels that used to undermine the hill. I noticed idly that it did not seem to be bricked up, and that a heavy disk of wood formed the apparent cover. Thinking of the things this well must have been connected with, if Pickman's wild hints had not been mere rhetoric, I shivered slightly, then turned to follow him up a step, and through a narrow door into a room of fair size, provided with a wooden floor and furnished as a studio. An acetylene gas outfit gave the light necessary for work. The unfinished pictures on easels are propped against the wall, were as ghastly as the finished ones upstairs, and showed the painstaking methods of the artist. Scenes were blocked out with extreme care, and penciled guidelines told of the minute exactitude which Pickman used in getting the right perspective and proportions. The man was great. I say it even now, knowing as much as I do. The large camera on a table excited my notice, and Pickman told me that he used it in taking scenes for backgrounds, so that he might paint them from photographs in the studio, instead of carting his outfit around the town for this or that view. He thought a photograph quite as good as an actual scene or model for sustained work, and declared he employed them regularly. There was something very disturbing about the nauseous sketches and half-finished monstrosities that leered around from every side of the room, and when Pickman suddenly unveiled a huge canvas on the side, away from the light, I could not for the life keep back a loud scream. The second I had admitted that night, it echoed and echoed through the dim vaultings of that ancient and nitrous cellar, and I had to choke back a flood of reaction that threatened to burst out as hysterical laughter. Merciful Creator! Elliot, but I don't know how much was real and how much was feverish fancy. It doesn't seem to me that Earth can hold a dream like that. It was a colossal and nameless blasphemy, with glaring red eyes, and it held in bony claws a thing that had been a man, gnawing at the head as a child nibbles at a stick of candy. Its position was a kind of crouch, and as one looked, one felt that at any moment it might drop its present prey and seek a juicier morsel. But damn it all, it wasn't even the fiendish subject that made it such an immortal fountainhead of all panic. Not that, nor the dog face with its pointed ears, bloodshot eyes, flat nose and drooling lips. It wasn't the scaly claws, nor the mold-caked body, nor the half-hooved feet. None of these, though any one of them might well have driven an excitable man to madness. It was the technique, Elliot, the cursed, the impious, the unnatural technique. As I am a living being, I never elsewhere saw the actual breath of life, so fused into a canvas. The monster was there. It glared and gnawed and gnawed and glared, and I knew that only a suspension of nature's laws could ever let a man paint a thing like that without a model, without some glimpse of the nether world which no mortal unsold to the fiend has ever had. Pinned with a thumbtack to a vacant part of the canvas was a piece of paper now badly curled up. Probably, I thought, a photograph from which Pickman meant to paint a background as hideous as the nightmare it was to enhance. I reached out to uncurl and look at it, when suddenly I saw Pickman start, as if shot. He had been listening with peculiar intensity ever since my shocked scream had waked unaccustomed echoes in the dark cellar, and now he seemed struck with a fright which, though not comparable to my own, had in it more of the physical than of the spiritual. He drew a revolver and motioned me to silence, then stepped out into the main cellar and closed the main door behind him. Sorry, I need some water. I think I was paralyzed for an instant. Imitating Pickman's listening, I fancied I heard a faint scurrying sound somewhere, and a series of squeals or bleats in a direction I couldn't determine. I thought of huge rats and shuddered. Then there came a subdued sort of clatter, which somehow set me all in goose-flesh, a furtive, groping sort of clatter. Though I can't attempt to convey what I mean in words, it was like heavy wood falling on stone or brick. Wood on brick. What did that make me think of? It came again, and louder. There was a vibration as if the wood had fallen farther than it had fallen before. After that followed a sharp, grating noise, a shouted gibberish from Pickman, and the deafening discharge of all 6 chambers of a revolver, fired spectacularly, as a lion tamer might fire in the air for effect. A muffled squeal or squawk, and a thud. Then more wood and brick grating, a pause, and the opening of the door, at which I'll confess I started violently. Pickman reappeared with his smoking weapon, cursing the bloated rats that infested the ancient well. It's just rats. The deuce knows what they eat, Thurber, he grinned, for those archaic tunnels touched graveyard and witch den and sea coast. Whatever it is, they must have run short, for they were devilish anxious to get out. Your yelling stirred them up, I fancy. Better be cautious in these old places. Our rodent friends are the one drawback, though I sometimes think they're a positive asset by way of atmosphere and color. This guy. Well, Elliot, that was the end of the night's adventure. Pickman had promised to show me the place, and heaven knows he had done it. He had let me out of that tangle of alleys in another direction, it seemed, for when we sighted a lamppost we were in a half-familiar street, with monotonous rows of mingled tenement blocks and old houses. Charter Street it turned out to be, but I was too flustered to notice just where we hit it. We were too late for the elevated, and walked back downtown through Hanover Street. I remember that walk. We switched from Tremont up Beacon, and Pickman left me at the corner of Joy, where I turned off. I never spoke to him again. Why did I drop him? Don't be impatient. Wait till I ring for coffee. We've had enough of the other stuff. Yes, we need more caffeine to go with our alcohol. But I, for one, need something. No, it wasn't the paintings I saw in that place, though I'll swear they were enough to get him ostracized into 9/10 of the homes and clubs of Boston, and I guess you won't wonder, now, why I have to steer clear of subways and cellars. It was something I found in my coat the next morning. You know, the curled-up paper tacked to that frightful canvas in the cellar. The thing I thought was a photograph of some scene he meant to use as a background for that monster. The last scare had come while I was reaching to uncurl it, and it seems I had vacantly crumpled it into my pocket. But here's the coffee. Take it black, Elliot, if you're wise. Yes, that paper was the reason I dropped Pickman. Richard Upton Pickman, the greatest artist I had ever known, and the foulest being that ever leaped the bounds of life into the pits of myth and madness. Elliot, old Rain was right. He wasn't strictly human. Either he was born in strange shadow, or he'd found a way to unlock the forbidden gates. It's all the same now, for he's gone, back into the fabulous darkness he loved to haunt. Here, let's have the chandelier going. Don't ask me to explain, or even conjecture about what I burned. Don't ask me either what lay behind that mole-like scrambling. Pickman was so keen to pass off his rats. There are secrets, you know, which might have come down from old Salem times, and Cotton Mather tells even stranger things. You know how damned lifelike Pickman's paintings were, how we all wondered where he got those faces? Well, That paper wasn't a photograph of any background. After all, what it showed was simply the monstrous being he was painting on that awful canvas. It was the model he was using, and its background was merely the wall of the cellar studio in minute detail. But by God, Elliot, it was a photograph from life. That's the end! End of Pikmin's model. We got our title drop in the last paragraph. Yay! Okay, time for water. That one was pretty long. Yeah, I will read some of chat now. Yes, it was a bit long-winded to get to the twist. Did any of you guys predict the twist? I feel like it was possible to predict. Okay, yes, let me take a look through your guys' comments and chats. Oh yes, the Pikmin dog. Yes, imagine like the Pikmin dog as the Eldritch Horrors. Actually, the story becomes kind of funny if you imagine all the paintings being of like Pikmin doing unspeakable things. I met a Pikmin once. Oh, hello, big cat wizard. Threw them at the local fawn. Yeah, this guy keeps talking about dropping Pikmin. He may be confusing it with throwing Pikmin. Ah, Bulborbs, I'm going insane. Wait, Fallout 4 had this guy as a quest? Wait, Fallout 4 Pikmin. Pikmin appears in Fallout 4. Pikmin's name is an allusion to... Oh, okay. There's like, yeah, apparently it's a Fallout 4 character that's a reference to this. But he's not a painter. Bad reference. Yeah, celebrating a hanged ancestor. Well, I think there's probably some people nowadays who will... When did I change my hair to short hair? That was a complete accident. There's probably some people nowadays who have ancestors who were in the Salem witch trials, and it's kind of a cool thing to say. Like, did you know my ancestor was in the Salem witch trials? Yeah, the Pikmin is definitely an interesting character. When he starts going on this rant and calling people moderns, and he got kicked out of the art club for being a gamer. He was just talking about being a pirate or a witch or something and started calling people slurs. Just started nodding, trying to slip up. Yeah, we were kind of... Pikmin was just like, you want to see my cool pictures? You want to see even cooler pictures? I got even cooler pictures in here. Eggman? And what do you guys think the horrors looked like? How will you imagine them in your head? Cyclopean, antediluvian, cacodemonical... No, I don't think he ever uses that. Feeded. Clear key Lovecraft. Yeah. Feeder means a foul smell. I learned a new word today. Oh yeah, we learned a new insult also. Mollycoddle? I've never heard someone call somebody a mollycoddle. Yeah, at least it wasn't Chupacabra. Yeah, he's quite a figure. Carrying, an artist who has a revolver. You assumed he was painting the monsters to life. You gasped? Gasp! I can't believe it! Pikmin took photographs of monsters. No, he didn't Pikmin. I think Pikmin is like a last name referring to a man who is like maybe a miner? Maybe it's a miner? Like someone who uses a pick, right? Like, just like Minecraft. My ancestor was dunked 50 times? What? Okay, I can... Oh, sorry, that might have been a bit loud. Yeah, that one was a bit longer than I expected. Also, I hope that the audio is okay. I did test a little bit beforehand, but yeah, it's hard to tell what it'll be like in the stream. Okay, I was gonna do... I actually have like 2 more, but my throat is starting to... I guess I just haven't done this much reading in a while. And when I was doing the Morrowind readings, I paused a lot more. So I do want to read more, but... Oh god, is there like a really, really short story I can read? Let me see... Can we read a poem? We could read a poem! Oh, maybe I could read like a poem by Poe. Okay, so maybe like we can read a poem by Poe, just so that this isn't like Lovecraft only. Yeah, Poe has some spooky poems. Let me see if I can find one. Spooky poems. Yeah, so a poem is kind of like a story, right, too. Reading out loud is taxing. Yeah. It's a little bit taxing. Right, let me see what poem we have. Edgar Allan Poe, Dreamlands. A dream within a dream. Wait, he has a dream and a dream within a dream. Nice, Poe, nice. Alright, neither of these are very hard though. Let me see. Well, I know about Annabelle Lee, the Raven. The Raven is... Everybody knows the Raven already though. The Haunted Palace, the Sleeper. Sorry, if I scratch my head, I feel like you can hear it with this mic. And I'm not used to having to be this quiet. Oh, I apologize if you can hear me randomly scratching my head and stuff. A poem, if you will. Call me Cask of Amontillado, because wait a sec. Sorry, Amontillado. Dreaming with, yeah, a dream. A sequel to a dream within a dream. A sequel to a dream within a dream. A dream within a dream within a dream. Yeah, there should be... Let me see. The Haunted Palace? So we do... The Haunted Palace... I'm not gonna read The Raven. The Raven is basically a short story. Too much reading. Or Dreamland. Sorry, but you won't top Christopher Lee reading Raven. Yeah, that's why I don't want to do it. I can't do it justice. Yeah, I do want to read at least one more thing, so I'm just looking at some poems I can read right now. Oh, excuse me. Okay, let's do Dreamland. Yeah, let's read this story by... Sorry, not story, this poem by Poe. Dreamland. I've never read this before, so it might be weird, I don't know. Okay. By a wrote... Oh, I should change the story title. Okay. Dreamland. Okay. I just picked this because I saw the word ghouls in it. Ghouls, just like Fallout. Alright. Wait, dunking shame was done to people? They would put them in a chair and dunk them in a lake. I vaguely remember this. Yeah, they did that in the Salem trials, right? Okay. By a route obscure and lonely, haunted by ill angels only, where an eidolon named Night on a black throne reigns upright, I have reached these lands but newly, from an ultimate dim Thule, from a wild, weird clime that lieth sublime, out of space, out of time. Bottomless vales, and boundless floods, and chasms and caves, and titan woods. Poe, woods and floods don't rhyme. I think that's called like a slant rhyme. With forms that no man can discover, or the tears that drip all over. He's doing it again! He's doing it again! Okay, I'm sorry. I'll stop interrupting the poem. Mountains toppling evermore, into seas without a shore, seas that restlessly aspire, surging onto skies of fire, lakes that endlessly outspread, their lone waters lone and dead, their still waters still and chilly, with the snows of the lolling lily. By the lakes that thus outspread, their lone waters lone and dead, their sad waters sad and chilly, with the snows of the lolling lily, by the mountains near the river, murmuring lowly, murmuring ever, by the grey woods, by the swamp, where the toad and the newt encamp, by the dismal tarns and the pools, where dwell the ghouls. Sorry, no. I was so excited to say the word ghoul. Let me redo that. By the dismal tarns and pools, where dwell the ghouls, by each spot the most unholy, in each nook most melancholy, there the traveller meets aghast, sheeted memories of the past, shrouded forms that start and sigh, as they pass the wanderer by, white robes. What the heck, I'm just making up words now. I have to not read chat, just gonna laugh. White-robed forms of friends long given, in agony to the earth and heaven, for the heart whose woes are legion, 'tis a peaceful okay, I'm just losing my ability to read, I'm sorry. For the heart whose woes are legion, 'tis a peaceful soothing region, for the spirit that walks in shadow, 'tis an El Dorado, but the traveller travelling through it may not dare openly view it, may not dare not openly view it, never its mysteries are exposed, to the weak human eye unclosed. So wills its king who hath forbid the uplifting of the fringed lid, and thus the sad soul that here passes beholds it but through darkened glasses, by a route obscure. Is it route or route? I don't even know. By a route obscure and lonely, haunted by ill angels only, where an eidolon named Night on a black throne reigns upright. I have wandered home but newly from this ultimate dim Thule. Okay, and that was Dreamland by Edgar Allan Poe. I had to stop laughing because my mouth agape. Sorry, the mic is probably peeking me laughing. My mouth agape aplenty. My mom shoots me. Okay, that's enough. An ability to read Lost, for the madness of the words came at great cost. Yeah, the madness is affecting my sanity and I can't read anymore. Yeah, I love A Color Out of Space, but that one's really long. Like, I think it would take like hours for me to read. Actually, let me see. Like, if I look up an audiobook reading of it right now, it's about an hour and a half. Oh, I have to do more practice reading before that. Okay, let's do another poem then. I'm actually just gonna Google good spooky poem. That one was okay. Not one of Poe's greatest hits. It was a little bit spooky. 13 spooky poems. Halloween poems. Spooky and scary poems that will make your hair curl. Coleridge. Oh yeah, Coleridge. Oh, have you guys read the Rime of the Ancient Mariner? That's actually pretty spooky. Rime of the Ancient Mariner. But these are long. These are freaking long. I don't want to read. These are basically short stories too. And there's Child Roland to the Dark Tower Came. This one is also pretty long. Here's one about fairies. It's not really spooky though. Wait, Lovecraft has written poetry? Fungi from Yuggoth. Of course, the poet's poetry collection is called Fungi from Yuggoth. Of course it is. That's really the title of his poetry collection. 36 sonnets, yeah. Like, I can read. I lost my mind so truly. Okay, thank you guys for providing poetry for me to read while I can't make up my mind. I lost my mind so truly. In my mind, in my bed, I saw a ghoul. A website baited for your clicks. Nothing more than a box of ticks. Yeah, fun guy. I heard he's a fun guy. Well, maybe this would be fun to read. But yeah, okay. Only short poems from now on. I can't find anything to read. Maybe I should look up short spooky poems. I have to specify short, or they're just gonna give me ones that are super long. Scary poems. HauntedBritain.com. 31 spooky poems. Wait, why Haunted Britain? 10 classic poems for Halloween. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not spooked very well. I'm looking at these poems and they're not very spooked. I'm not really getting spooky. I'm not getting spooked. Oh, here's one by Robert Frost called Ghost House. Okay, I love Robert Frost. Actually, maybe I'll read this one. Okay, this is Haunted House by Robert Frost. Sorry if you can shame me for liking Robert Frost if you want. He is very New England though. He is very New England. A road less traveled. I took the road less traveled than I. That was what made all the difference. Something. Okay. It says, oh no, it's not called Haunted House. Wrong title. It's called... Shoot, I can't. OBS, come on. Ghost House, Ghost House. Okay, I will actually read another poem. This might be the last one though. It's been almost an hour and a half. I think we've done a pretty good amount of reading. Maybe I'll read Fungi from Yoggoth at another time. I had no idea that Lovecraft had a collection of sonnets. Okay, and thank you guys for your poetry contributions. I do appreciate it. Alright, this is by Robert Frost. I dwell in a lonely house I know, that vanished many a summer ago, and left no trace but the cellar walls, and a cellar in which the daylight falls, and the purple-stemmed wild raspberries grow. O'er ruined fences the grapevines shield, the woods come back to the mowing field. The orchard tree has grown one copse, of new wood and old where the woodpecker chops. The footpath down to the well is healed. I dwell with a strangely aching heart in that vanished abode, there far apart, on that disused and forgotten road, that has no dust bath now for the toad. Night comes, the black bats tumble and dart, the whippoorwill is coming to shout, and hush and cluck and flutter about. I hear him begin, far enough away, full many a time to say his say, before he arrives to say it out. It is under the small, dim summer star, I know not who these mute folk are, who share the unlit place with me. Those stones out under the low-limbed tree doubtless bear names that the mosses mar. They are tireless folk, but slow and sad, though too close keeping are lass and lad, with none among them that ever sings, and yet in view of how many things, as sweet companions as might be had. Okay, and that was Ghost House by Robert Frost. About, I'm pretty sure he was talking about ghosts. Wait, is he a ghost? Because he says he lives in a house that is gone. So is the speaker a ghost? Yes, class, this is your next assignment. Discuss in the poem Ghost House by Robert Frost. Who do you think the protagonist is? Oh my god, the road most traveled Morrowind OST. Not everything has to do with Morrowind. Or maybe everything has to do with Morrowind. Oh, hello, Sango, if I didn't say hello. Poems we give not for free. A bill of great cost sent to thee. Wait, how much is the bill? How much? You can have a free redeem if you want. The creatures that fly and dart so cleanly. For my dinner, I'll have linguine. Wait, first spaghetti, now linguine. Maybe you should go eat dinner. Maybe you guys are getting hungry. A report of poetry, suffering wrought unto me eternally. Wow. Maybe you guys should just only talk of poetry now. Right, any other themes? Wait, on poets.org, you can search by themes, and a theme is ghosts. You can search by you can search for poems about ghosts. This is so cool. Oh, one sec. Okay, let's see. Haunted Houses by Longfellow. There's so many poems about ghosts. This is so cool. Okay, this one is short and okay, let's read this I'm sorry. This short story stream has become a poetry reading stream because my throat hurts, but we'll do a couple more. Cursed rhyme we are, until we return to the celestial star. But aren't stars inherently celestial? That's like redundant, right? Ghosts, like from Morrowind ancestral tombs. I admire your ability to link everything to Morrowind. Okay, so this is The Shadow on the Stone by Thomas Hardy, and this is like a short poem, but with a little bit of a spooky story to it. So here we go. I went by the druid stone that stands in the garden, white and lone, and I stopped and looked at the shifting shadows that some moments there are thrown from the tree hard by with a rhythmic swing, and they shaped in my imagining to the shade that a well-known head and shoulders threw there when she was gardening. I thought her behind my back, yeah, Her I long had learned to lack, and I said, I am sure you are standing behind me, though how do you get into this old track? And there was no sound but the fall of a leaf, as a sad response, and to keep down grief, I would not turn my head to discover that there was nothing in my belief. Yet I wanted to look and see that nobody stood at the back of me, but I thought once more, nay, I'll not ambition, a shape which somehow there may be. So I went on softly from the glade, and left her behind me throwing her shade, as she were, indeed, an apparition, my head unturned, lest my dream should fade. Okay, and that was The Shadow on the Stone. That was pretty short, actually. You're short and comfy? Oh, thank you. Glad they're comfy. Yeah, this was actually sad. Wait, this one's actually sad. I didn't realize it was so sad. Yeah, I don't know. I think spooky things just make people want to write in general. Spooky things. Yeah, so what there... Okay, your next reading, short answer was, do you think that there really was a ghost, or was he just imagining something? Please submit at least 150 words. Oh wait, this lady, Christina Rossetti, I know her. She's written... Look, listen, this is under Christina Rossetti in the ghost category. The Ghost Petition, The Poor Ghost, The Hour and the Ghost. I think she really likes ghosts. Wait, let me open some of these out of respect for her love for ghosts. Oh, these are kind of long. No, they're just sad ghost poems too. They're very sad. Okay, let me see if I can find some non-ghost spooky poem. I want to read a non-ghost spooky poem. Let's see. Oh, there's The Ghost, Charles Baudelaire. This is French. Should I try to read a poem in French? Comme dans l'alphabet, je reviendrai dans ton alphabet, et vers ton... I'm sorry, I'm just mangling. I'm absolutely mangling this. I don't actually know French. But that's how I imagine. Yeah, if anyone would like me to read a poem, it has to be spooky though. Let me know. It has to be short and spooky. Morrowind binds us all in chains. We have chronically rotted brains. How can you rhyme with Rossetti? Rossetti? Wait, no, don't say. I immediately thought of one thing. A ghost of file. Being unmedicated is spooky. Yeah. It's okay occasionally to embrace the spookiness though. I kind of want to read Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. You know what? Let me see. How long is it? Because I like that poem. No, it's so long. No. Can't do it. My throat hurts too much. The witches fell from Macbeth. Wait, I'll read this. This is just from Macbeth. I'm not gonna put it on the screen because it's just for fun. Maybe I could make it sound spooky. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, fillet of a fenny snake, in the cauldron boil and bake, eye of newt and toe of frog, wool of bat and tongue of dog, adder's fork and blindworm's sting, lizard's leg and howlet's wing, for a charm of powerful trouble. Like a hell broth boil and bubble, double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, cool it with a baboon's blood, then the charm is firm and good. Okay, what's with all these people rhyming ooh and blood and good? Maybe in Old English they're pronounced the same. Cool it with a baboon's blood, then the charm is firm and good. You know what? I think that might be it. I think that might be it. They probably pronounced it like that in Old English. Casting OG hexes. Yeah. I'm using my nighttime fairy magic. What should I read? Let's see. Short, spooky poems. Where did a bunch of witches and medieval Scotland get a baboon? They thought that a baboon is just like any. Wait, how would they get a monkey either? I don't know. They're just making it up. It's not really a baboon. They made it up. Poems. Short, spooky poetry. No, I think this one is for kids. I'll read you one of these, but these are for kids. This is by Jack Prelutsky. Skeletons and ghosts and ghouls, grinning goblins fighting duels, werewolves rising from their tombs, witches on their magic brooms. No, this is for kids. Okay, Poetry Foundation Halloween Poems. Creepy Halloween poems. I think I'll try to read one more. Okay, here's Carl Sandburg. This guy's poems are just like one sentence but spread out across like 10 lines. It's not bad, but I can't read that. Sorry that I'm not talking much, I'm just looking for poems. Something wicked this way comes. Oh yeah, I missed that. I totally missed that part. Local farmers market. You can definitely get pumpkins there. Wait, I wanted to read a Christina Rossetti poem, Goblin Market. This one is also super long. No, why are they all super long? Okay, come on, make up your mind. Make up your mind, streamer. I can't make up my mind. The Wasteland T.S. Eliot. Yeah, I'm totally gonna read all of that on stream. That's in the ghost category, though. The Wastelands by T.S. Eliot has ghosts in it, apparently. Okay, what else do we have? Oh, I just wish I could read more. My throat hurts. Short, Halloween, classic. No, short, spooky, classic. This is why I usually prepare these things before stream. I didn't prepare any poems. What's with poets and writing super long? Like classic poetry is all super long. No worries, I was spooked in advance. I'm glad you guys have been pre-spooked. I don't even need to read anything. Oh, well this one is by Millet. I really like Millet. Okay, let's read this one. Okay, a ghost. This is another. Sorry, I'm not excited or anything. Okay, another story about a ghost. This is not really, this was not supposed to be a ghost themed stream, but I don't know. There's a lot of poems about ghosts. Okay, this is The Little Ghost by Edna St. Vincent Millay. Alright, finally I'm reading something. This is the last poem of the day. Thank you guys for hanging out. I knew her for a little ghost that in my garden walked. The wall is high, higher than most, and the green gate was locked. And yet I did not think of that till after she was gone. I knew her by the broad white hat all ruffled she had on, by the dear ruffles round her feet, by her small hands that hung, in their lace mitts austere and sweet, her gown's white folds among. I watched to see if she would stay, what she would do, and oh! She looked as if she liked the way I let my garden grow. She bent above my favorite mints with conscious garden grace. She smiled and smiled, there was no hint of sadness in her face. She held her gown on either side to let her slippers show, and up the walk she went with pride, the way great ladies go. And where the wall is built in new, and is of ivy bare, she paused, then opened and passed through a gate that once was there. Okay, so that was a short one. A cute and friendly ghost poem. Yeah, see, it's only very slightly spooky because there's a ghost, but it's a very friendly, cute ghost. Yes, cute ghost poem. Yeah, she likes the garden. Yes, guys, if you are in your local garden, look out for some ghosts also enjoying your local garden in this spooky month. Okay, yes, that will be the end of the stream, because I am out of, well, ability to read. I would love to read more, but I'm out of ability to read. Yeah, so I will call it here. But yes, thanks so much. It was fun to do this kind of stream. Now go eat 2 pounds of Halloween candy. I don't know about that. Probably some cough drops though. Yeah, I'd like to do this kind of reading stream occasionally in the future, and in case you're wondering, this is a binaural mic. Yes, I can whisper into each ear. This is, yes, this is a binaural mic. So I don't know, maybe we'll do something actually using the binaural micness in the future, but we'll see. Okay, yes, thank you guys. Happy October the 22nd, and have a good rest of your Sunday. Have a good night or afternoon and so on. And thank you. Glad that some of you guys enjoyed it. Bye bye. It was very comfy and spooky for me as well. Alright, take care. Bye bye.